Well, good morning and good afternoon to Colonel Burton. Colonel Burton, this is Brian Whitman at the Pentagon. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine, Brian.
Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon and for giving us some of your time. This is Colonel J.B. Burton, who is the commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 1st Infantry Division. He assumed command of the Dagger Brigade Combat Team in June of 2005, and he and his troops are serving in multinational division Baghdad. He's coming to us today from Camp Liberty and is going to do an update for us and what his unit has been doing, and then has offered to take some of your questions. So, Colonel Burton, thank you. This is the first time you're joining us in this format. I can attest to the fact that we have a pretty tame crowd here, but they are also very interested in what you're doing in Baghdad. So with that, let me turn it over to you for any opening remarks that you might have, and then we'll get into some questions.
Well, thanks a lot and good morning. And thank you for this opportunity to talk with you today, to share some of my thoughts and to answer your questions. I'm Colonel J.B. Burton, and I command the 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 1st Infantry Division. Our Brigade Combat Team, the Dagger Brigade Combat Team, deployed from Schweinfurt, Germany in August 2006, originally as the U.S. Central Command's Theater Reserve. Upon notification for deployment, we immediately deployed one infantry task force directly into Baghdad, followed very shortly thereafter with an armored task force to Ramadi and a 3rd Infantry Task Force to southwest Baghdad. We then deployed the remainder of the Brigade Combat Team to West Baghdad, where we integrated 3 in-position maneuver task forces and assumed responsibility for our battle space in early November 2006. Now let me tell you a bit about our area of responsibility in northwest Baghdad. We are responsible for coalition force activities across an area of about 93 square kilometers, with an indigenous population of about 1 million people. Our area of responsibility runs from Kadamiyya in the northeast, and then extends west to include Shula, and then south to include Ghazaliya, Qadra, and Amariya, and then east again to include all of the Mansour area north of Route Irish. This heavily urbanized area is further defined by being principally Shia in the northeast, Sunni in the west and southwest, and mixed in the southeast. There are sectarian fault lines that further define these areas, where both Sunni and Shia extremists vie for control over portions of the city and its citizens. These contests between extremist actors come in various forms, from extremely horrific acts like car bombs being detonated in public gathering places, to illegal militia control over access to gas stations and food distribution programs, to execution-style murders by death squads designed to terrorize local citizens into leaving a specific area or to supporting a sectarian cause. And intermixed amongst this part of Baghdad are great Iraqi citizens who are eager to get on with their lives, to enjoy the benefits of a secure environment, and to participate in the reconstruction of their nation. Our Brigade Combat Team's mission here is to secure the Iraqi people within our area of responsibility in order to provide the Iraqi government a chance to govern. And we do that by focusing our efforts to defeat extremist actors, increase the professional capabilities of the Iraqi security forces, and by assisting local governmental leaders in their efforts to govern effectively. Under the Baghdad security plan, we have deployed most of our forces away from the big forward operating bases and occupied smaller, more austere combat outposts and joint security stations throughout the area of responsibility. This deployment of forces out and among the people has had an immediate and positive effect on the overall security situation, on the professional capabilities of our partnered Iraqi security forces, and on the abilities of local governmental bodies to form and operate. Our soldiers are living out in the neighborhoods of Baghdad with our Iraqi security force partners. Working with us here in partnership are 10 Iraqi Army battalions and 2 National Police battalions, which are deployed across 2 security districts of the Kark Area Command, those being the Kadamiyya Security District and the Mansour Security District. We plan and conduct operations together. We grow in capabilities together, and together we are increasing the trust and confidence in the Iraqi people in their nation's forces to provide security. The fundamental necessity for improving the quality of life for Iraqis in Baghdad is security. And to achieve that necessity, the Baghdad security plan is focused on three basic parts: clear, control, and retain. In the clear and control phases, Iraqi and coalition forces will not simply clear neighborhoods and then leave them unattended. We will clear the neighborhoods of extremists and then in place measures to control those areas and protect the population so that they are not threatened by extremist forces in the future. These gated and secure communities facilitate the rebuilding of neighborhoods with security provided through the combined efforts of Iraqi and coalition forces, allowing local governmental processes to take root and improve access to basic and essential services. The establishment and maintenance of the joint security stations within these communities is an integral part of the clear and control phases. Now, ultimately, we will fully transition the security responsibilities of these areas to the Iraqi security forces in the retain phase, allowing us to relocate coalition forces to achieve and assure control. In order to support our efforts and the efforts of local governments throughout western Baghdad, we recently received and integrated 1 battalion from the 2nd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division, and they are currently operating effectively within the Kadamiyah Security District in the northeast portion of our area. We've also received a battalion from the 4th Brigade of the 1st Infantry Division, and just yesterday they began operations in the Mansour Security District in the southeast portion of our area. Now, we're scheduled to receive within the next month or so an embedded provincial reconstruction team which will work closely with local and regional governments to identify key projects to improve basic and essential services, infrastructure, and economic growth throughout western Baghdad. Inside the Dagger Brigade Combat Team, we had already developed and employed our own local reconstruction team, which has been very effective in working with local leaders to develop programs which benefit the citizens of West Baghdad. With the addition of this embedded provincial reconstruction team, we expect even greater results over time. Under this new plan, we have already begun to see progress, which is demonstrated by a noticeable decrease in the numbers and effectiveness of attacks across our area since the beginning of operations. It is important to note that the overall effects of this new Baghdad security plan, Operation Fard al-Qanun, will not be seen in days or weeks, but over the course of months. And while it is too early to determine if this downturn in the number and effectiveness of attacks is a major and enduring trend, it is definite that these conditions are giving the Iraqi security forces the opportunity they need to get control of the security situation and to increase their professional capabilities. And they are doing so with great pride and great enthusiasm in many areas. This downturn in violence also provides the opportunity for the citizens of western Baghdad to live in an environment which is less violent, providing increased opportunities for local and district governments to form and operate, to increase the opportunities for employment, education, and access to a better life. These are all positive signs, necessary for continued progress here in Baghdad. Now, make no mistake, we're not proclaiming victory yet. There's a lot of tough work ahead, but we're very optimistic. We'll continue to take stock of our actions to determine what adjustments need to be made as we continue our mission here. With that said, I'll open it up to any questions.
Well, thank you, Colonel, for that overview, and we'll get right into it here. Go ahead, David.
Colonel, this is Dave Wood from the Baltimore Sun. You mentioned economic activity, and I wonder if you could sketch out for us what is the unemployment like in your area, and is there enough American and Iraqi money coming in to help alleviate that?
The ability to assess the overall unemployment level across western Baghdad is difficult at best. But here's what I will offer. In working with the neighborhood advisory councils and the district advisory councils, we're identifying key projects that aid in the reconstruction of the city, and specifically in western Baghdad. And we seek opportunities to employ principally local people so that they have a positive investment opportunity into the future of their neighborhoods. This is getting much traction. In terms of money and resources coming into western Baghdad, and specifically into the Dagger area of responsibility, we have not yet found any challenges with adequate resources to continue the building of the infrastructure here. What is most important, I believe, is the establishment of a functioning budget within the districts and within the neighborhoods principally, so that the Iraqi leaders can understand clearly what it costs to sustain the municipal functions within their areas specifically, and so that the Baghdad leadership, specifically in western Baghdad and in the districts that we work very closely with, can better forecast their requirements for the future, both in terms of resources necessary and the opportunity to employ the local citizens.
Just anecdotally, are there a lot of guys standing around that you feel could be employed and keep them out of trouble if you had the opportunity to do that?
Well, certainly putting young men and young women to work in western Baghdad, I believe, will have an immediate impact on decreasing the violence in specific areas. Let me give you an example. Up in the northeastern portion of our area of responsibility, specifically up in Shula and Kadamiyah, we have already seen where the district advisory councils and the local governmental leaders are working very effectively with the provincial reconstruction teams of Baghdad, and specifically with our own local reconstruction team. And we are putting lots of young people to work in municipal functions, everything from cleaning the roads to paving the roads to opening up small businesses. We have microfinance offices going in that are allowing us to jumpstart some small entrepreneurial actions across northwest Baghdad and northeast Baghdad. These are all positive signs that we see the employment opportunities decreasing the violence, specifically in the Shula and Kadamiyah areas. And we hope to export similar programs throughout the rest of the area of responsibility. But what we've seen, more importantly, is that the violence level is not just contributed to by the local citizens. There is, in fact, an import of Sunni extremists in from the west, which continue to cause violence, which decreases the opportunity for locals to engage in governmental processes or even seek employment. What we've got to do is bring that security situation under control to provide those people in those neighborhoods the opportunity to be employed and to invest in their neighborhood's future.
Hi, excuse me, Gordon Lubbold from the Christian Science Monitor. Could you tell me a little bit, we were told maybe a few weeks ago about a new Iraqi rotational plan that essentially prevented Iraqis from leaving to go to another, to go home to pay their families or whatever. Is that in place where you are, and how is that working? What's the impact?
We have, and I hope I got the question right. We have seen a rotational formations come into our area of responsibility, specifically from the Kurdish areas of Iraq. We have an entire brigade that has been brought into northeast Baghdad that is working extremely effectively in partnership with our forces. They are aggressive and they are committed to security. And they are also committed to increasing their professional capabilities in partnership with the task force commanders that are on the ground there. So that has been a positive sign. There is also a program in place which allows us to rotate formations out of the battle space for what is called rebluing and retraining. And there are no forces right now inside our area of responsibility that are scheduled in the near term to rotate out.
I don't think I explained very well. We were told that there was a new plan as part of the Iraqis' commitment to this new plan forward to ensure that the Iraqi army didn't leave for 10 days at a time to go home and pay their families or take leave or whatever it was they were doing. And as part of this new commitment moving forward, that was eliminated for at least three months at a time. Are you seeing that?
You're talking about the Iraqi rotational and leave programs, I presume, and let me talk to that for a minute for you. Our soldiers are able to operate on this battlefield in Iraq far away from home because we have electronic banking opportunities for our paychecks. The Iraqis don't yet have that, and their leave program has been brought to the attention of the Iraqi security force leaders so that they have a more structured rotational program which allows the Iraqi soldiers, national police, and local police to rotate out of the battle space without causing a tremendous decrease in effectiveness across the area. We have seen this start to take root, with Iraqi security force leaders closely monitoring who is on duty and who is not on duty and who is scheduled to rotate out, so they can attend to those things that we as Americans sometimes take for granted.
John?
Colonel, it's John Hendren at ABC News. Let me ask you just generally, are you saying the surge is working, and can you give us some numbers to maybe quantify that decrease in violence you're talking about?
I can. The immediate impact of this surge is really seen, I believe, in the projection of American forces from the large forward operating bases out into these smaller, more austere combat outposts. The principal effect of that is getting coalition forces living and working with Iraqi security forces from locations that are out along the principal threat areas inside of western Baghdad, in our area specifically. What we have seen is a decrease from, we started our push out in January and have been following through with our own projection of power out into these joint security stations since then. And from January to February, we saw a decrease from 141 murders, or what we believe to be extrajudicial killings throughout our area, from 141 down to 63. And right now in March, we have tracked 16 EJKs that we have found in our area. Same with improvised explosive devices. We have seen a decrease from about 12 in our area in January down to 3 now in our area that have, and the key about all of those IEDs that we are finding is not only have they decreased in number, but they have decreased in effectiveness. And I believe that has to do with us being out in the neighborhoods constantly, 24 hours a day and night, with the Iraqi security forces continuously disrupting the insurgents' ability to target and prepare their own munitions to attack us with. We have seen, though, over the course of the last few days, an increase in the number of VBIEDs, specifically targeting Shia gathering places and national police and Iraqi army checkpoints, specifically in the Mansour area. Now, I believe that increase in vehicle-borne improvised explosive device attacks is a result of a departure of Shia extremist leadership in recognition of the local Shia holiday of Ashura and Arba'een. I believe the Sunni extremists saw that as an opportunity to strike with much violence across much of western Baghdad. But that violence has been short-lived. And in testament to the great courage and commitment of the Iraqi army soldiers and the Iraqi National Police, they have in fact defeated 3 vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices inside of our area of responsibility, rendering them harmless before they could reach their intended targets. All positive signs based on the commitment to this new plan.
Colonel, if I could follow up again, just to clarify, those IEDs, there's 12 in January and 3. Is that March or February? And can I ask you also, just to summarize, I mean, does the surge appear to be working? Is that the result of this decrease in violence?
I believe that the short-term indicators that we have seen based on the new Baghdad security plan, which is really a projection of combat power from these FOBs to a near full-time presence out in the area, is having a positive impact on the security situation of western Baghdad. For IEDs specifically, improvised explosive devices, in January 89 were detonated. In March 21 have been detonated so far. In January 36 were discovered. In March 10 have been discovered. And that's a notable decrease across the board. For explosive form penetrators, IEDs that are of the explosive form penetrator types, in January there were 12 in our area of responsibility, and in March there are 3. Now let me clarify something. The explosive form penetrator device is principally found where Shia extremists operate. And with the departure of the Shia extremists over the course of the last month, we're monitoring this very closely to ensure that this is not an artificial trend as we watch for the Ashura and Arba'een festivals to come to a conclusion and the potential for these Shia extremists to return to the battlefield.
Colonel, this is Courtney Kuby from NBC News. I just want to clarify exactly what you're saying here. So the Shia extremists, when they leave, the violence goes up. I mean, are you saying that the Shia extremists really provide an element of security in part of your area?
I would not say that at all. What I would say is as follows. with a Shia extremist influence and a Sunni extremist influence, coalition forces are focused in two directions: to defeat extremist actors regardless of the sect. What we have seen is when the Shia extremists departed our area of responsibility, specifically in western Baghdad, incidence rates in the Shia areas dropped dramatically. Incident rates in the Sunni areas increased a bit, with vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices targeting Shia gathering places and Iraqi security force locations. So what I think we are seeing right now in a very short duration with regards to the Sunni extremist actors, if they have seen an opportunity with Shia extremists out of the area to strike with much violence in in western Baghdad to take advantage of this absence of Shia extremists.
Is it fair to say that the majority of the attacks you're seeing in your area overall, are they targeting Shias, or how would you clarify?
Today, and specifically since the start of Fard al-Qanun, which was on 14 February, that coincided with the Ashura celebrations and with Arba'in. There was a call to remove Shia extremists from the fight. We believe that was announced by some more senior Shia extremist leaders, and they have gone quiet or departed the area. With their departure, the principal violence we have seen has not been in the Shia-dominated areas. Those areas have gone relatively quiet as we have progressed in this new Baghdad security plan. Conversely, as we built combat outposts and joint security stations on these fault lines, we have seen increased attacks against our soldiers because we're out there more often. And this has been principally in the Sunni-dominated areas and principally carried out by Sunni extremists.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Dagger 6, this is Lisa Burgess with Stars and Stripes. Can you give us a little more information on these combat outposts and JSSs? When I left Baghdad in early February, the plan, as I understood it, was not to put U.S. soldiers at the JSSs as a permanent presence, but just to come in and out. Sounds like that's either changed or maybe it wasn't the deal in West Baghdad. I was in East Baghdad. Can you talk a little bit more about these combat outposts and JSSs and how you're pushing troops out there?
Certainly. The one thing to remember is that these combat outposts are something that American soldiers do. We project combat power, we secure terrain, and from that secure terrain we dominate the battle space. So we're very comfortable in doing this. Under the Baghdad security plan, it was recognized that the driving back and forth to work from our areas of responsibility back to the larger FOBs was not as effective as it might be if we were actually out and amongst the people 24 hours a day. So in terms of the combat outpost, those were principally designed to project coalition forces solely out into the battle space, where they could dominate the terrain, make contact with the people, and further expand the security influence in some of the very troubled sites. The joint security stations were designed to allow coalition forces and Iraqi security forces to partner in the combined command and control processes for planning operations and executing operations from common points across the battle space. What we have seen with the development of the combat outposts is they have rapidly turned into joint security stations because the Iraqi security forces were coming to the combat outposts anyway to conduct planning and operations with the coalition forces. And so it was very easy to transition from something that was principally coalition focused into a combined effort with combined command posts, with shared information and intelligence so that we could effectively operate across the battlefield. And it also decreases the amount of time necessary for information to pass between coalition forces and Iraqi security forces. The Iraqi security force leadership under the Kark Area Command, which is responsible for Iraqi security forces in western Baghdad, has directed that Iraqi security force officers are actually posted in these joint security stations to increase the capabilities that are already extant in there. So we have tremendous opportunities ahead of us, and we're very optimistic. Every day I go out and visit these joint security stations, I see better interoperability increased command and control processes, and increased sharing of information. But what we started out with as a means to get coalition forces out into the battlefield has grown into a very promising effort to execute combined operations across western Baghdad.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, what's happened to the joint security stations? Do they still exist? It sounds to me like the combat outposts have sort of taken over the function of the joint security stations. I know the JSSs have Iraqi police and army actually living there, so you don't have room at the combat outposts to have those folks live there, but what, do you have a hybrid here, or? This is very interesting.
Now, what we have is these joint security stations are actually a manifestation of the combat outposts that we projected out very early, and that's specifically inside the Dagger Brigade Combat Team. As I told you earlier, we had started projecting combat power out into the battlefield and away from the big FOBs because we were not getting the effects that I thought necessary in driving back and forth to work every day. For instance, in Ghazaliyah, which is on the western portion of our area along a very troubled sectarian fault line, we pushed out the 2nd Battalion, 12th Cavalry Regiment to occupy what was then Combat Outpost Casino, designed to bed down a coalition force company so that they could operate across Ghazaliyah very effectively. Very shortly thereafter, the commander of the 4th Battalion, 1st Brigade, 6th Iraqi Army began conducting combined planning and efforts in that same combat outpost. So very rapidly, it turned into a joint security station where we have representatives of the Iraqi Army and the National Police and coalition forces planning together, executing command and control processes together, and yes, living together in this same joint security station. So what started out as a combat outpost grew into a joint security station, and it's a very promising development.
Colonel, we have reached about the end of our time here that we've allocated for this, and we want to be respectful of your time. So let me turn it back over to you to see if you have any closing remarks you'd like to make before we bring it to an end.
Well, I do, and I do appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you this morning and answer some of your questions. I will tell you that we, along with our Iraqi security force partners, are fully engaged and committed to the security of the Iraqi people, to improving the lives and safeguarding the futures of all Iraqis across western Baghdad. The achievements we've experienced thus far have not come without sacrifice. We have suffered losses in combat with the enemy. But make no mistake, those losses serve to strengthen our resolve to accomplish our mission here and to leave this part of Baghdad better than we have found it. We look forward with great optimism as we continue our mission. And I would also like to say that we're extremely blessed to have the enduring support of our tremendous Task Force Guardian and family readiness groups in Schweinfurt, Germany, Fort Bragg, Fort Bliss, Fort Hood, and Fort Riley, along with the continued tremendous outpouring of support of the American people who have not flinched in their commitment to their nation's service members. Together, these great teams of committed patriots form the bedrock of our continued resolve to accomplish this mission. I'm honored to be here, leading this tremendous Brigade Combat Team formed of our nation's finest who are committed to this noble mission, and to have the opportunity to work alongside some outstanding Iraqis who are genuinely committed to the enduring security of their nation. It's a prideful thing. I thank you all for your time this morning and look forward to the opportunity to talk with you again in the future. First team, and duty first.
Thank you, Colonel Burton, and we do hope to talk to you again soon, and obviously you're in a sector that is of great interest to us back here, and we appreciate you taking the time this morning to share what your unit is doing.